Why is a watch a keeper? And I'll give you a hint, it's not about the specs. First off, I'm wearing the gold G-Shock Metal Square, the 5000 model. I love this thing. It's affectionately known as the Bling Master, and I can tell you it definitely blings. I find myself looking at it and the lighting and stuff. Absolutely just a fun watch, feels great on the wrist. Absolutely enjoying it. Still definitely in the honeymoon phase with that. So I've been thinking about this for a while, about keepers. So I'm going to put this into probably two parts. The first one, I'm going to talk about, for me, what makes a keeper watch. So, and I'm going to talk today about sentimental value, influencers, value retention, and what I call the it factor. I'm going to stay away from talking about specific watches right now because I think that could kind of just make this far too long. But I do want to do some other episodes on ones of my collection or watches of my collection that fit into these categories as I evaluate why I kept them as keepers. But to start off, sentimental value. I think that speaks for itself. There's tons of reasons why we'd have sentimental value for a watch. It could be something that my wife bought for me. It could be something that a good friend or friends bought for me. Could have been the first watch that I have. It could be where the watch actually came from. It could commemorate a certain event. So lots of different aspects. But I think when we determine if we're going to keep a watch as something permanently in our collection, I think that is a huge component in it, especially for me, and I'm guessing that you guys will probably agree with that too as well. The second one, whether we like it or not, we are influenced by others in this hobby. I hang out with a bunch of guys online that are constantly buying watches. I look at it this way: when one of my buddies gets a watch, keeps a watch, the length of time that they keep that watch for, how often they wear it, that's going to influence my decision making, not only in the purchasing aspect, but when seasoned collectors talk about a watch that they love and that they keep, it makes that shift for me to keep them in my collection. It adds a little bit to that. Now, just because somebody else likes the watch is not enough by its own, but if you've been attracted to a certain watch and then you have other people in the hobby that are keeping those, it does play a role, especially for me. And then for me, to be honest, my wife picks out my keepers. She's like, "Why are you selling watches? Like, what kind of business person are you? Like, you've sold a bunch to this guy and you're not making any money off them." And so it's not really about that per se. But when she starts looking at my collection, she's like, "Well, you can't sell this one, this one, this one, and this one because I like them too much." So, like it or not, that's an influence. The other one I think that is one that a lot of folks talk about is value retention. My spin on value retention is this: in some circumstances, you may hold on to a watch because you feel the value is going to go up on it, and you might be able to flip out of it later on. In some circumstances, for me, the price of entry for certain watches really doesn't make it worth my while to flip out of that watch. So I think value retention kind of goes up, like as the value of the watch can potentially go up, which unfortunately doesn't happen that much unless you're buying a Patek or a Rolex. But also at that lower end too as well. I think as a quick side note with value retention, and you guys know this, like buy smart. If you're buying full on retail, nothing wrong with that. But at the same token, don't expect to be able to flip that watch around, with the exception if you're buying maybe a Zen or some sort of limited edition watch, but then that's not even guaranteed to as well. So value retention was that next one. And then the it factor. The it factor is one that is absolutely subjective. for you all that browse watches, look at watches, you know what I'm talking about. You could have a friend that nabs a great watch, you see that, and all of a sudden you're like, wow. I was watching Random Rob's live stream last night, and he pulled out that tuna, he put that on his wrist, and for him, I could tell it was about the it factor. He saw that watch. Obviously, he had experience with the tunas before, but that there was something that just spoke to him. And I think as us as collectors, we have that stuff that speaks to us sometimes, and there's no logic behind it. There's just something about it that really draws us to it, you know, aesthetically speaking. And like I said in the beginning, it's not really about the specs per se. Notice I didn't talk about specs on any of this because, again, that's subjective. For some watches, mineral glass is fine. I can't talk. Mineral glass is fine. Sapphire is fine on some, but it's really the total package. You know, it has to do with all those things that I'm talking about between the sentiment, who's influencing you on that watch, perceived value, value retention, and that it factor. So going forward right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start kind of maybe talking about some of my watches in my collection, and I don't want to do a traditional review of them. And I think this could change a little bit, but I think as I look at my watches and as I review them for you all, what I want to do is really have these factors in mind as I'm reviewing them, and that will help me kind of solidify, you know, what I call my keeper, so to speak, which obviously can be a moving target too. So, as always, guys, I really appreciate you guys watching. I'm getting lots of good engagement on the channel. Please, please, please like, subscribe, tell your friends. I think I'm doing something a little bit different here. I am not a watch review channel. I'm just a guy talking about watches. I love this hobby. I love the communities that I'm involved with this hobby, and I really would appreciate the support. So like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Maybe send it off to somebody else who's a watch geek, and maybe they'll get into it too. So as always, guys, stay positive, make friends, and enjoy the journey. I'm out. Bye-bye.